Imagine you're sitting next to someone you love. Maybe you're in the car, maybe you're on the couch, maybe they're across the dinner table, and they are right there physically, but you feel completely alone. You try to connect with them, to share something important, to get them to understand your perspective, but it's like they're actually miles away. They're present in body, but absent in every way that actually matters. If you've ever felt that heartbreaking disconnect, that loneliness of being with someone who simply cannot reach you emotionally or you them, then you know exactly why this topic matters so much. Hey guys, and welcome back to Get In You Are Driving. And today is our part two of how to drive with someone in your car who really feels like miles away and all things emotional availability, emotional intelligence. And like I said back in part one, I really want to do a part two on this because I just felt like there was a lot to say and it's a really important topic, I think, to me and also the culture right now. Again, I explored in the part one the concept that I called unreachable people. So if you don't know what that means in the scale I created, I would really encourage you to go to part one because then it might not make a lot of sense. But unreachable people are those individuals who seem to have an invisible wall between them and the rest of the world. They're not necessarily cold or mean, they're often warm and kind on the surface, but they lack self awareness and emotional intelligence to truly connect with other people on a deeper level. So, in part one, we talked about what makes someone unreachable, why I think this is happening now more than ever before, and how to recognize where people fall on my reachability scale from 1 to 10. We learned that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves, and that understanding this can change your relationships going forward and just how you approach them in general. But again, understanding the problem is only half the battle. The question everyone I think will have had after part one is that, okay, so now what? What do I actually do with all this information that I learned about people? And how do you navigate relationships with people who can't meet you where you are? How do you protect your energy without becoming cold or disconnected yourself? How do you love someone who's unreachable without losing yourself in the process? And most importantly, how do you make sure not to become unreachable yourself? So those are the questions that we are diving into in today's episode in part two. Let's get into it. So navigating unreachable people and practical strategies for this. So again, we have now come to understand what makes someone unreachable, how to recognize where people stand on this scale. So now it's what do we do and how do we protect ourselves and still maintain like a good relationship with people. So step one is you meet them where they are. The first step is to meet people where they are always, not where we wish them to be. This means observing and honestly assessing where someone falls on that 1 to 10 reachability scale we talked about, and then adjusting your expectations and energy investment accordingly. I know this might sound calculated and maybe even a bit cruel, but I don't think it is. I think this is better for both parties. Um, because when you try to get curious about people instead of judging them and complaining about what they're not giving you, you can see them for what they are and you can see them as more of just this human, right? Like the good and the bad. Because we all have good and bad. It's not just this person that you want more from, right? They might feel the exact same way about you, and we're going to get into that. But I think this is what it looks like practically. If someone consistently shows you they're operating at a 4 on the emotional intelligence scale, stop expecting 8-level conversations from them, 8-level sympathy from them, 8-level understanding from them. You will not get it. You are just having conversations that are pointless. Again, if someone has shown you repeatedly that they can't handle vulnerable topics without making it about themselves, without getting super defensive, stop sharing things with them. And if someone, again, also gets very defensive when you want feedback, stop trying to have conversations with them. Take it from me, it's pointless. Now, again, this doesn't mean you love them less or you write them off completely. It means you're being realistic about what they can offer you and the kind of conversations they can handle to have. And when you do this, I really think something great can happen, which is you can actually start to appreciate these people for what they bring to the table instead of constantly feeling disappointed about what they don't. Again, maybe they're not great at deep emotional conversations, but they're reliable when you need maybe some practical help. Maybe they can't handle your feelings, but they make you laugh sometimes. Maybe they're not emotionally available as you would like them to be, but they're generous with their time or their resources. Again, start trying to find the good in people and stop just complaining about the bad, because I do think everybody can offer something to an extent. And again, when you meet people where they are, I think you can enjoy them more, you can see things clearly, and you can stop asking too much of something, someone, of yourself that they never had to give you in the first place. The second practical step to dealing with these people is detachment. You have to practice detachment. Now, I want to be clear about what I think the definition of detachment is, because I think it can get misunderstood. Detachment, I do not think, is being cold and caring and bitchy. Sorry, but it had to be said. I think it means letting go of expectations from people, situations, and from outcomes. Because, like, at the end of the day, whether we can admit it or not to ourselves, like, we want things out of people, right? Like, this is just a reality. And recognizing that things and people are what they are, not what we want them to be, is helpful. And it's understanding that we may not get what we desire and still be at peace with that. When you are truly detached, I think you become independent in a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and even financial way. You need to be independent of those things from people and from things, because if not, something or someone is going to control you. And again, you're no longer relying on someone or something else to make you happy, and you realize that no one else is responsible for your happiness. You are rooted in yourself, or maybe in something greater than yourself. Maybe that's God, maybe that's the universe, maybe it's zodiac signs, whatever you fancy. And again, that's where your security lies, not in external things or people. And the power of detachment is that when you stop needing something from someone, you can see them clearly. You can objectively look at the situation by taking all of your emotions out of it. You can observe, you can take mental notes, and you can understand who they are and what they can or cannot offer. And again, you're becoming curious, not judgmental. But when you're attached to someone being different than they are, you're constantly frustrated. You're constantly trying to change them, convince them, or get them to see your perspective. And that is exhausting. But when you're detached, you can accept them as they are in the moment. So this paradoxically creates space for more actual connection. Okay. Step 3 that I think is very practical when dealing with emotionally unavailable people: choose compassion over judgment. When you're detached, especially from needing or expecting something from others, again, you can see people more clearly. And I think this usually gives you more of a compassion for people. This is what I've learned. Most of the time, when someone is emotionally unavailable, unreachable, their actions come from a lack of healing and self awareness. I went into this a lot in part 1. And Dr. Gaber Mate, when he was talking about childhood trauma and how to heal from it in a podcast I was listening to, he said, what we think is wrong with someone is usually just an adaptation they made to survive. Wrong in quotations. That person who can't handle your emotions, they probably grew up in a household where emotions weren't safe. That person who always makes everything about themselves, they probably didn't get enough attention or validation as a child. That person who gets defensive at any hint of criticism, they probably had critical or demanding parents. Now, this is not me saying their behavior is excused. No, because they're grown adults, but it can help you understand them and have more compassion. And when you understand the why behind someone's actions and patterns, again, you can see them from a human, compassionate point of view. You start to realize that they're human, that you are also human, and they have flaws, you have flaws, they make mistakes, they'll disappoint you. But most of the time, it's really not personal. It's about them. Their inability to meet you emotionally usually has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own limitations. So, again, I really don't think any of this is personal. I know some people might differ, but I really think hardly anything in life is personal. So, how people treat you is almost always a reflection of how they feel about themselves, what they've been through, and what they're capable of giving you in said moment. The fourth step to dealing with emotionally unavailable people is protecting your energy wisely. This means setting boundaries without anger or resentment. And you're doing this out of wisdom. Um, You watch what you say and you're careful with what you share. You create distance when you feel it's necessary for your well being. You're careful about how much you let certain people in. And this is especially important when it comes to family because family isn't people that you can usually just walk away from. And if you do, that's really hard. Again, you can't stop having a mother, a father, or a sibling. And I don't necessarily think cutting off somebody is the healthiest thing to do, unless, of course, it's an extreme case, abuse, addiction, dangerous behavior. This is extreme to like really cut off people. But in many situations, I think you can still have these people in your life just at a distance. You can learn how much to give and then when to hold back by watching their behavior. For example, maybe you decide you'll only share surface level things with certain family members and maybe keep visit shorts and not engage in certain topics that lead to conflict. And again, you can do this because you love them, but you know that if you don't do these things, it could just cause conflict between you guys and it's not worth it. And you do these things, but you don't rely on them for emotional support. So the goal isn't, again, to punish them or to be cruel or to do something out of anger and resentment. It's really just to protect yourself and the relationship in a way that looks healthy for you. Now, those are my practical steps. But now I want to talk a little bit about the cost of staying unreachable because let's be for real, a lot of people that are listening to this might be unreachable. And I think what's at stake. Um, so I want to take a moment about what happens when you stay unreachable. Basically, what happens when I think you don't try to heal and look back at your past, because I think that does cost us problems. And I think if we do this, it gives us more compassion and it motivates us to make sure we don't go down this path ourselves. Now, these are just some things. And I did say that I think people become unreachable over time. And again, here we go, getting into the consequences. 1, relationships deteriorate. I really think friends and family gradually will pull away when you do this. And again, not necessarily out of anger, but out of just exhaustion that the people feel towards you. People are going to stop trying to connect with you deeply because they just learned that it's not possible. 2, I think a lot of opportunities in your life are missed from everything and beyond, not just relationships. Like career advancement, I think does require emotional intelligence. Meaningful connection requires vulnerability. Personal growth requires self-reflection. And when you're unreachable, you miss out on this. 3, I think the cycle deepens. The more unreachable you become, I think the harder it is to break free because your world becomes smaller, your perspective becomes rigid, and your capacity for connection just shrinks. 4, isolation will increase. I think despite being around people, your loneliness is going to grow. You might have a lot more surface level relationships, but no one who really knows you or can meet you in your depth because you are unreachable. And then the last one is I think life becomes smaller. Your world shrinks to only what feels safe and familiar to you, and you stop growing, stop taking risks, stop believing that deeper connection is possible. Now, these are just a few of the things. I think there's a lot more, but I did kind of want to go over what's at cost here if you do stay in this unreachable state. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the power of being an example and an influence. This is the 5th step of how to deal with emotionally unavailable people. Again, the hard truth is people don't change for us. They change for themselves. I know, right? But when we show up differently, when we start demonstrating what emotional intelligence and reachability looks like, I do think this has a lot of power and it does influence other people. So when you begin showing up as someone who listens without making it about yourself, who can handle feedback without getting defensive, who asks curious questions instead of just waiting for your turn, people notice. People notice. And sometimes if you begin showing up differently, I really think it can soften people. It can make them curious. It can make them think, she's no longer reacting the way she used to. Why? I wonder why. And I really do think this has the power to spark change within people. Your role in dealing with these people is to extend an invitation for them to want to change. Nagging them and telling them they suck and it's just not going to get you anywhere. You do this, you hopefully get them to change by wanting to change for themselves and by feeling like the kind of person you wish they could be for you. You can demonstrate what healthy communication looks like. You can show up for them in a way that makes them feel truly seen and heard. And honestly, that's really all you can do at the end of the day. I wish there was more. I wish there was a magic button that people could change, but you can only model what you want to see and extend an invitation to people. But remember, they have to choose to accept that invitation. You can't force somebody to become more reachable for you. Now I'm kind of debating if I want to include this part or not, but I think I will. I think this can be a little bit of like a daunting, very sad topic because maybe you are feeling like, wow, most people in my life are unreachable. My family, a lot of my friends, and I'm really sorry if you're feeling that way. I know family is really hard. Friends, I really promise you can always meet new people. It might take time, but putting yourself out there, you can. So I want to give hope because there is hope here. And I wanted to talk about signs that maybe someone is becoming more reachable because I don't want to leave you here feeling like, oh my gosh, everyone is so emotionally unavailable. Now, when you start, hopefully, this invitation, at least with your family, like if you do really love the people around you now and you want them to change, again, it's like I said, you want to personally invite them to do this by being that change yourself. And these are some signs that they are watching you, taking notes, and changing. So here's what to look for. One, they start asking questions instead of just talking. They become curious now about your perspective instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. Two, they are going to apologize when they realize that they've hurt you. Not defensive excuses, but genuine apologies that show they understand that the impact of their actions had an impact on your emotions. Three, they show curiosity about your perspectives. They say things like, that really helped me understand. I had never seen it in that way. Coming from your way, thank you. Four, they admit when they don't know something. They're comfortable with uncertainty and they're willing to learn. Four, they pause before reacting emotionally. There's a gap. People that usually react right away don't tend to have your best interests at heart. They're just their ego got upset. So you can see them again, maybe taking a breath when they respond and like thinking about a response. And then the last one is they start asking why about their own patterns. They begin to show self awareness, hopefully about their triggers and their behaviors. Now, there's probably more. These were just some that I could come up with at the moment. But again, I wanted to leave you with some good news here because I think these are all really great signs that someone is trying to grow and become more reachable. And when you see them doing this, it's definitely worth investing more energy now in that relationship and reevaluating things and also saying encouraging things to them every once in a while and being like, you know what, I really see that you're trying harder in that conversation and it means a lot to me. That can go so far with people. It always amazes me how far just a little bit of encouragement can do. So the key is learning to recognize the difference between someone who's genuinely more self-aware and someone who's just temporarily on their best behavior. Real change shows up consistently and not just in isolated moments. So I want you to remember that. Now we are going to get into you being in your driver's seat and making sure you are not unreachable. We've had all this talk about unreachable people, but again, that brings up the important question, the most important one that I think is, how do we make sure this isn't who we are? Because here's the thing, we all have the potential to become unreachable. We all have blind spots, triggers, traumas, and patterns that can make us difficult to reach for other people. And if there's one thing, this whole observation that I've done with this and written extensively on has taught me is that self-awareness is everything and it's power. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot meet someone as deeply if you haven't met yourself deeply first and really tried to understand you. Here's the most important truth of all, and the thing that I always encourage in my podcast, why I started in the first place, is that let's say you're unreachable right now. You can become reachable because you are in the driver's seat of your life. You can't control who's reachable or unreachable around you, but you can absolutely control how you respond, where you invest your energy, and importantly, how you choose to show up. Now, something I want to talk about is the story that we tell ourselves, because the first thing that I think we need to acknowledge that we probably don't realize is that we all create stories around everything in life. The way we see the world is a story. You may disagree with me, but this is just how it is. We are constantly telling ourselves story, especially about our relationships. I bet you have a story about your mom, about your dad, about your brother, about your best friend. You have a story about these people in your head. And this is what's scary and what I want you to know, even if it upsets you, you are not a you are not a reliable narrator of your own experiences. I'm sorry. You're not, because there's going to always be gaps. And if the people in your life heard your version of the story you have about them, they would probably have objections, and maybe a lot of them. So, where does that leave us? For me, it leaves me with the need to come back to the truth. It means sincerely asking myself, what is actually true here? And if I had to look at this objectively, are there cracks in the story I've been telling myself? Are some of my claims exaggerated or blown out of proportion? Are some of my claims fair and accurate? You have to be so brutally honest with yourself here. And the thing is, only you can do that. Only you can know if you're being brutally honest. And yeah, sometimes we get things right in the story, and there are valid feelings to feeling hurt. And there are times when people have really hurt us, and we're not making that up. But the issue is that we don't usually start there. Especially when we're frustrated or dissatisfied, we jump to blame. We tell ourselves they hate us, they're a bad parent, they're selfish, and we go into victim mode, again, without ever examining our own part in this dynamic. So, this is where it gets me to the truth seeking process. Now, my second episode on this podcast was about truth and how important truth is to your life. If you haven't listened to that, please go listen to that, because if anybody ever asked me, Maria, what's the best advice you ever received? I did not receive this advice. I created it for myself around a lot of things that I heard. And I came up with this dicho. I can't think of the word in English. This saying that is, seek the truth in all you do and it will orient you. I don't know. It came to my head one day. It's my mantra. Seek the truth in all you do and it will orient you, because it's changed my life. So, again, before you complain, before you spiral into it's all about me, I'm the victim in all my stories, I want you to sit down with yourself and look at what you feel, and then ask yourself honestly and objectively what is true and what is not. I know that whenever I'm spiraling or lost or confused, especially when I have a relationship conflict, my first question is, what is true? And that can be really hard sometimes, because sometimes there are facts that are true that I don't like and that don't go along well with my story, but they're true. So, starting with the truth has always at least given me a very inexplicable peace and clarity, because I think this simple question really cuts through the bull crap and all the stories, all the emotions, all the drama, and it gets you to what's actually true and what's actually happening. And when possible, if the person that you're struggling with actually hopefully cares and is sincere, and you can have an honest conversation with them, you can talk about these hard truths. Bring your truth to a conversation like this if you have it, but also bring your humility. And get ready to probably be humbled, and be willing to hear their perspective too. Be willing to understand two things can be true at the same time, that you can be hurt by their actions and they can have valid reason for those actions, and vice versa. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Being honest with ourselves in this way is how I think the number one way to make sure we stay reachable with others and ourselves. It allows us to think objectively and take other people's feelings and opinions into account while still being true to what we think and feel. Now, I understand that unfortunately you cannot have these really hard types of conversations with a lot of people, because a lot of people just can't have them. They're very immature. They go into all those things that I said before, and it's pointless. But I do think there are some people that you can have these conversations with, especially if it's someone that you really love and you want to go deeper into the conversation. So, yeah. Now, another crucial practice to making sure that you stay reachable is whatever you want to receive from others, make sure you're also giving it. Ask yourself, am I embodying the qualities I want in others? Again, everybody's saying, I want someone who's emotionally intelligent. I want someone who's emotionally available. But tends to be that the people that are saying that the loudest are not this themselves. Do you want to be someone who listens? Or sorry, do you want someone who listens? Well, are you actually listening or are you just waiting for your turn to talk in conversations? Do you want someone who's patient? Well, are you actually patient with others when they make mistakes towards you? Do you want someone who puts effort into their relationship? Well, what effort do you put in your relationships? Do you want someone who's emotionally available? Well, are you available? Or are you a distracted person? Are you stressed? Are you focused on your own problems? The standard is this, in my opinion: be the person you wish others would be for you. Be the person you wish others would be from you. The same thing of Gandhi saying, be the change you wish to see in the world. Stop complaining, be it. Be it. Every single day, you get to choose. Will you become someone who is deeply reachable? Will you do the inner work that so many people avoid? Will you meet people where they are instead of where you wish they could be? Will you protect your energy wisely? Will you choose compassion over judgment? These are all choices. There are daily decisions about how you're going to show up in relationships. And again, this is where the power lies. I want to touch on self awareness again because I think that it's everything. Know who you are, know what you want, know why you want it. This is truly such a power. And stop judging others and just focus on your own growth. You're a whole project on your own. We all are. Now, I think these are just a few ways of what self awareness looks like in practice, so I wanted to talk about it. One, know your triggers. You need to understand why things set you off. You can feel yourself getting activated by whatever it is, and you can choose how to respond when you understand what your triggers are. So, again, when you understand what your triggers are and you feel triggered by something, you can then choose how to respond because you know why this trigger is there. Two, understanding your patterns. You notice when you're repeating the same behaviors or ending up in the same situations, and you get curious about why instead of just blaming your circumstances. Next one, you can admit when you're wrong. You're not so attached to being right that you can't see maybe when you've made a mistake or you've hurt someone. Next self aware thing, you ask why about your own behavior. When you react strongly to something, you pause and ask yourself, why did this trigger me? What is this really about? Where is it really coming from? Next one, you take responsibility for your own happiness. You don't expect other people to manage your emotions or make you feel good about yourself. Learning to be self aware, learning to feel emotions but not be led by them and to question them, to pause and choose your response with them. I really think this changes your life. And I know that for me, it's made me a lot less judgmental of people. It's made me ask new questions. It's made me become very curious about myself. And it's made me stop wishing that people were different. And again, focus on myself. Because now I ask myself, with all these things of wanting to become self aware and these practices, when a relationship conflict comes up, I think, what do I actually want from this person and why do I want it? And am I being realistic in my expectations? And what am I bringing to the relationship? Again, back to truth. Because we're so quick to judge people and the roles that they play, parent, partner, friend, like, well, I had a bad dad or I had a bad mom. But we rarely stop to define, what do those roles even mean? And how could we actually define those roles? And again, what are we bringing to the table? Like, what are we contributing? All right, so we're still in the section that's how to not become unreachable yourself. And now I want to talk about the magnetic quality of reachable people because this is something that I've really discovered and I've loved it. And it's that becoming someone who truly is reachable is such a powerful thing. And when you are emotionally intelligent, self aware, when you can listen without making everything about you, when you can handle feedback without getting defensive, I really think you become magnetic. And reachable people, the ones that I've met, really draw others toward authenticity and growth, and they can create safe spaces where, again, real deep connection can happen. And again, there's something about truly reachable people that we need and want more of. And again, I think this is why this is all happening in the first place. We want these kind of people. They are honest with themselves and with others. They open the door to, again, just a beautiful relationships with them, a beautiful life. And when you become reachable and start working on yourself and all these things that we're talking about, I really think you start attracting other people who are also reachable, and you stop settling for surface level connections because you know what deeper connection feels like. So, if you have been hurt by unreachable people in your life, emotionally unintelligent, however you want to say it, you're not alone. Most of us have, right? We probably all know at least one person who is this. You have a choice to make. You can carry this pain forward and become unreachable yourself and blame life, or you can use that pain as motivation to become everything you wished they could have been for you. You can choose not to pass that dysfunction down. You can choose to be the person who breaks the cycle in your family, in your friend group, in your relationships. And this is really, really, really powerful. If you have read the book It Ends With Us, the first one, I think that's just such a good demonstration of how powerful it can be when one person makes the choice to break a cycle. So, when you do your inner work, when you become emotionally intelligent and self aware, you begin to model, because we're always becoming, right? We never are. We're always becoming. You can model what healthy relationships look like, and you can show others that it's possible to communicate without getting defensive, to love without trying to control, to be present without making everything about yourself. But we have to acknowledge responsibility and your freedom here. So here's the paradox: taking full responsibility for your own emotional growth, I think, is what actually sets you free. When you stop needing other people or wanting them to be different in order for you to be okay, you become free, right? Because you're detaching. When you stop trying to get validation for people who can't give it to you, you become free to find it in healthier places. When you stop taking other people's limitations personally, you become free to love them for who they are right now. This is what it means to me to stay in the driver's seat, which is what this podcast is all about. You're not trying to control all the other cars on the road. You're just focused on staying in your lane, driving with intention, and getting to where you want to go. Back to what Dr. Gaber Mate said: we may be puppets on a string with our trauma, but we do have the ability to change. And healing begins with compassionate curiosity towards the self. You can choose to become someone who is reachable. You can choose to be the person that breaks the cycle. And when you do that, when you become someone who is emotionally available and intelligent, I think it's a ripple effect. Other people will begin to notice. They will start to feel safe around you. And sometimes your commitment to doing this, of being reachable, will inspire others to do their own work. I really, really think this. But either way, if it doesn't or does not, I think you should want to do this for yourself. And you'll know that you showed up as the best version of yourself. You'll know that you stayed in the driver's seat of your own life, no matter how unreachable the people around you might have been. And that's what makes you someone who makes the world a little bit better by just being in it. Guys, we have come to the conclusion. And in the conclusion, I'm going to give you a little action plan moving forward. But yeah, I'm glad I made this episode 2 parts. I don't think I would have been able to sit and film for 2 hours. But I want to invite you, because we're at the end, and I want to leave you with this. Becoming someone who is reachable, like I said before, it's a powerful thing. And at the end of the day, I really think it allows you to connect deeply with people who are also reachable and have the deep connections that you so deeply crave in life, in your relationship. Again, it allows you to have conversations with people you know you can truly trust with your emotions, where you feel safe knowing that they'll listen because they love you and care about you and how they affect you. How beautiful is it to think that you know someone can be angry at you, but they won't hurt you because they're still going to care about how you feel? Like, that's a very nice thing to think about. And again, it allows you to pour into others and for them to pour into you. Reachable people are honest with themselves and with other people's. Again, we talked a lot about truth and how that is so fundamental. That was one of the pillars of me creating this podcast, was truth. Again, it opens the door to beautiful relationships, and these people are magnetic, and there's something about them that we obviously want more and more of. Because, again, if you've been hurt by unreachable people, I get it, I do. But again, instead of sitting and staying parked in this pain, I want you to think about how you don't want to pass this down to other people, and think about how you want someone to become who is reachable for the people you love in your life. Because when you do this, I really think you open the door to meeting other people who are like you. So here are your action steps that I would like you to take if you don't know where to start with this. First, take an honest inventory. Where do you think you are on my reachability scale of 1 to 10? Be brutally honest with yourself. Are you someone others come to with their problems? Do you listen without making it about yourself? Can you handle feedback without getting defensive? What's your honest assessment of yourself? Second, practice my truth question, like we talked about. When you're spiraling, confused, frustrated with someone, pause and ask yourself, objectively remove yourself from the situation and think, what is true? Not what you feel, not what you assume, not what your story is. What is actually objectively true? 3, choose just one relationship. Maybe pick one person in your life that you've been frustrated with, you've been distant with maybe, and instead of complaining about what they're not giving you, try meeting them where they are for a week. Adjust your expectations based on what they've shown you they're capable of and see how it maybe could change the dynamic of your relationship. Fourth, do a self-awareness check. Ask yourself why about a pattern or a reaction that you keep on having. Why do you get triggered by certain things? Why do you keep ending up in the same situations? Again, get curious about your patterns and reactions. Some quick reference tools, I think, for your daily life. And wait a minute. Okay. I'm trying to make sure like what I did here makes sense. Okay, quick reference tools for your daily life. I'm going to give you some tools that I think you can actually use when you're in the moment. So, 3 questions before engaging deeply. How do they handle feedback or different perspectives? Do they show genuine curiosity about others? Can they admit when they're wrong or don't know something? Warning sign checklist of if they're emotionally unavailable. Conversations always become about them. They get defensive when they're questions. They repeat the same complaints without taking any action. They don't ask about your life or feelings. They can't see your perspective even when you see it clearly. The truth check questions. What is actually true here? What am I assuming versus what I actually know? What's my part in this dynamic? Am I being realistic in my expectations? So, yeah, these questions were just kind of like daily questions that are very practical that you can ask yourself. Now, my final reminders are that remember these truths as you're navigating your relationships. Again, I know I've said this, I've beat the horse, but we're going to do it one more time. People can only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself. Or, sorry, that's not even it. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. This is not an excuse for their bad behavior, but it is a reality that will help you set appropriate expectations with them. 2, you cannot change anyone else. People only change for themselves, so focus on what's in your control. 3, 2 things can be true at the same time. You can be hurt by someone's actions and they can have valid reasons for those actions. You can love someone and choose to limit how much they have access to you. 4, nothing is truly personal. How people treat you is almost always about their own boundaries, insecurities, wounds, capacities, trauma, not about you. 5, our hope factor, healing is possible. People can grow in their emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not like IQ. Don't write anyone off completely, but don't sacrifice your peace without waiting for them to change. And back to you having a choice. You have a choice to make. You can continue trying to get water from wells that are dry, or you can focus on becoming someone who has water to offer. You can keep expecting people to give you what they don't have, or you can learn to meet them where they are. You can stay stuck in victim mode, complaining about how unreachable the people are, how everyone's emotionally intelligent, how you hate a certain sex, whatever it may be. Or you can take responsibility for your own emotional growth and become someone others can actually depend on and connect with. The choice is yours. You are in the driver's seat, but I know which one leads to better relationships, and that's deeper connections. And I think deeper connections also lead to a more meaningful life. So, a little bit more homework for the week that I'm going to give you is I want you to watch people. I want you to really watch people, but I don't want you to judge them. I just want you to understand them and notice their patterns. And again, where do you think they fall on this reachability scale? How do they handle conflict? How do they handle feedback? How do they process other people's emotions? And then adjust accordingly. Meet them where they are, love them for what they can offer while protecting yourself from what they can't. And most importantly, because this is not all about other people, it's about you. Watch yourself. Notice your own patterns. Notice when you've become maybe a bit unreachable. Notice where you fall on my scale. Notice when you're asking too much of someone who doesn't have it to give. Because again, the goal isn't to become perfect or to only have perfect people in your life that can offer you everything you want. The goal is to become someone who can navigate all types of relationships with wisdom, compassion, healthy boundaries, and love. Remember, life is tough, but you, my friend, are tougher. And you are always the one driving. You get to choose who sits in your passenger seat and how much access they have to your emotional world. So choose wisely. Choose to drive towards connection, truth, and becoming the reachable person that the world needs more of. We need more emotionally intelligent, available people. And choose to stay curious about yourself and others. Choose to meet people where they are while never losing sight of where you're going. And remember that some people will unfortunately be right there physically, but miles away emotionally. But your job isn't to bridge that gap for them. Your job is to stay in your lane, drive with intention, be truthful with yourself and others, and become someone worth riding with. Thank you so much for listening to these 2 episodes. I'm really glad I made it 2 episodes. I really hope all this made sense, as I really do feel like this is such a big topic right now, and relationships are just so important in our lives, and knowing how to navigate them is so freaking important. So I really hope that the insight and things that I have learned, because like I always say, do not take what I say at face value. These are just observations I have made, but I do think they can be helpful to you, hopefully. So yeah, good luck. You've got this. Get in your car and drive, and I will see you in next episode.